Okay, I'll call this regular council meeting of 2014-06-10 to order. And a motion for approval of the agenda. Moved by Councilor Hewitt, second by Councilor Lane. Call the question, all in favor? Motion passes. And adoption of the minutes. Do you want to do this as a block? Or? Okay. Regular council meeting of 2014-05-27.
I'll move that we adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting of 2027.
Seconder? Second. Second by Councilor Lane. Discussion, call the question, all in favor? Motion passes. And moving. Yeah, go ahead.
That the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting held June the 3rd be received.
Moved by Councilor Hewitt, second by Councilor Leathwood. Discussion, call the question, all in favor? Motion passes. And we have a delegation. Kootenai Conservation. Welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate
You have 10 minutes and 5 minutes for questions.
Okay, so I'm going to talk very, very fast. So my name is Dave Hillary. I'm the program manager for the Kootenai Conservation Program. Here to really talk to you about two different aspects: the program itself, what we do, how we do in the network that I represent, and also talk to you about the potential of developing a local conservation fund in partnership with both regional district and willing town, villages, and cities in our neighborhood. So the Kootenai Conservation Program has a vision to have landscapes in the Kootenays that sustain naturally functioning ecosystems that in turn support economic and social well-being. So 3 legs of the stool. We envision vibrant communities that demonstrate the principles of environmental stewardship for future generations. Our mandate is quite broad in that we are a network in a collaboration of now over 70 organizations in both the East and West Kootenai. And I'll show you a list of the representative sample of those organizations. It's very broad. But our mandate is to coordinate and facilitate the conservation effort on private land and to generate support and resources necessary to maintain the effort. So critically important that the focus of the organization and the network is the private land base and not the provincial or the federal crown land base. The goals of our program are really to increase the rate of private land conservation. And when we talk about private land conservation, we talk about both land securement through fee simple acquisition or the use of conservation covenants, and increasing the stewardship and management and partnership with private landowners throughout the region. We do want to increase the level of landowner stewardship, and that was identified as a gap a number of years back, and one that we're really trying to fill through the collaboration. Another aspect is to improve communication and knowledge within the partnership, build the capacity of the partner organizations, both technical information sharing and financial capacity, and improve access to increased financial and technical resources for projects. Our approach, again, is private land focused. It's to coordinate and facilitate, not advocate or regulate. We've picked a fairly narrow niche that we're comfortable in, and it served us quite well over the course of 12 years that we've been in existence. And our role is to really add value to the work that our partners do, because we facilitate and coordinate. We're not the organizations that put the shovel in the dirt, but we try to support our partner organizations in doing what they do better and faster. Our structure is very, very simple. We have one program manager and a part-time stewardship advisor and a part-time communications and administrative support person. So across the entire Kootenai region, 1.75 full-time equivalent positions covering the service area. We have both a steering committee and an executive committee, which is the governance body. We also have a securement committee that looks after land acquisition and includes partner organizations like the Nature Conservancy of Canada, Ducks Unlimited, the Nature Trust of BC, and both the provincial and federal government. And in our case, Fish Wildlife Compensation Program as well, which is a fairly unique organization. We also have a stewardship committee that's broken into 2 parts, one servicing the East Kootenai and one servicing the West Kootenai, knowing that the issues and challenges are a little bit different between those 2 areas. And then again, our partner organizations. So 70 partners right now is the count, and our partners include not only conservation organizations like we can commonly think of them, but agricultural organizations, forestry, business, education, First Nations, and all levels of government. When we first started, there was a lot of talk about conspiracy theory within the environmental and the conservation community, and we said we wanted to be as open and transparent as we could. And the way we've arrived at that is if you want to be a partner of our organization, you're welcome. By saying that you support the mission and the mandate, you're welcome as a partner. You can come to the meetings and find out exactly what we talk about and be engaged in the conversation. I've got a list here of all of the 70 partners. It doesn't mean much talking to it, but it is a very, very robust group of organizations. My guess is 85% of which you would know by name or reputation. Our funders are few. We have the Columbia Basin Trust, the Regional District of East Kootenay, who we developed a partnership with relative to delivering a local conservation fund in that area. Environment Canada, Fish Wildlife Compensation Program, Habitat Conservation Trust Foundation, and the Nature Conservancy of Canada. A very, very small budget. These organizations have been with us for a long time now. And one thing that we've always said is we don't want to go out and compete directly with our partner organizations for the finite dollars that are available. So we run a very, very lean, shrewd, small organization and try and represent the interests of all of our partners. Accomplishments, very meaningful not only on a local and regional scale, but really on an international and global scale. In the past 12 years of our existence, we've conserved over 300,000 hectares of high-value conservation lands in both the East and West Kootenay. We've created over $150 million in conservation investment into our neighborhood in both the East and the West Kootenay. And we created the first local conservation fund in Canadian history with the Regional District of East Kootenay. I want to talk about conservation finance a little bit, in that we were always struggling as a group of organizations on how to bring dollars to bear on all of the projects. We were having major gift donors contribute, foundations contribute, individuals contribute, and all levels of government outside of regional and municipal government sources. And I was down at a meeting in Montana, and they were talking about bond and ballot initiatives. And just to give you an example, between 1986 and 2008, about half of the states in the continental U.S. were bringing forward either regional county bond initiatives or ballot initiatives, or dealing with legislative appropriations at the state level. And the slide that really brought it home for me is that in 2008, those different sources of revenue brought in $8 billion in conservation investment into the United States. And no one had ever done this or tried it in Canada. So we saw that as a huge opportunity and a huge void. The process they followed in the state was legislative funding process for ballot measures. What we did in our experience here is basically adapted the concept to our legislative framework. And what we created in the Regional District of East Kootenay is called simply a service bylaw. And it's a $20 per parcel tax that's imposed by the Regional District of East Kootenay that goes into a dedicated conservation fund that our program helps to administer on behalf of the Regional District of East Kootenay. So basically stole a good idea from elsewhere, imported it into our neighborhood, customized it, made it fit our purposes, and created this fund. The fund was created on November 15, 2008 with a 54% approval rating at probably the toughest economic time in recent history. If you remember back to 2008, that was when the economy was collapsing, and the ratepayers in our neighborhood said that they still wanted this fund, they still supported it, and they voted through referendum, the most democratic process we could come up with to create this fund. So now conservation is a service delivered by the Regional District of East Kootenay. We raise upwards of $230,000 annually, and the KCP plays a role in administering the program on behalf of the Regional District of East Kootenay. The themes that the fund supports are protection of quality of life, which is a broad, kind of overarching principled statement, conservation and restoration of fish and wildlife habitat, conservation of watersheds, so water quality, water quantity were critically important in all the market research that we did, and conservation of open space and working family farms dealing with locally produced food production. And the whole trick behind the fund in the Regional District of East Kootenay is that it only supports projects that are based on local values and priorities. So we went out and collected through market research what people wanted the fund to be spent on and reflected back in our terms of reference a fund that provided funding for only those issues. We've got a 5-year granting history now under our belt, 44 projects supported between 2010, 2014, directly contributed $1.5 million towards those projects. And interestingly enough, that's leveraged another $5 million in conservation investment into those same projects. And in a lot of cases, because our fund is small and we can be quite responsive, in a lot of cases we're the first money into a project, and that really demonstrates a local value, a local priority, philosophically supported by the regional district directors, and more importantly, in a lot of cases, that first money into the project that can go out and be leveraged elsewhere. And a wide diversity of projects being supported. Just to give you a rambling list here, and a very short list. Columbia Lake Lot 48 was a project by the Nature Conservancy of Canada that dealt with land securement. It was a politically challenging and politically charged environment, and that was a piece of development land along Columbia Lake that was right for development. The regional district of East Kootenay went forward with the downzoning proposal, and it turned into a bit of a political hot potato. The Nature Conservancy of Canada came in, said it had key ecological values, struck a deal at fair market value to purchase the property from Fairmont Hot Springs Resort, and did so with partnership with Habitat Conservation Trust Foundation, Lake Windermere Rod and Gun Club, Columbia Basin Trust, Fish Wildlife Compensation Program, federal government, provincial government, and at the end of the day, Tech Resources contributed $2 million. Our fund was the first money into the project. It was the biggest grant that we've made to date. It was $700,000, so about 10% of the project. Key piece of property for the Tunaha Nation. It's where their creation story was built around the shores of Columbia Lake. A few other projects. Boulder Creek Diversion Project, a $70,000 project, so not insignificant. And that was the Toby Bridges Society, the Rod and Gun Club, and the Ministry of Environment working together to correct, past mistakes around a water diversion project at the turn of the last century to increase wetland capacity and rechannelize previously fairly destroyed little area. And again, that reflected back the priority of local water quality and quantity, and it again dealt with the long-standing community issue. Ecosystem restoration, another project in the East Kootenay through the Nature Conservancy of Canada, the Nature Trust, the provincial government, and the private landowner, dealing with grassland and open forest restoration, where they were going in and actually mechanically thinning the landscape, removing the number of stems per hectare, the number of trees that were there, with the intent to reintroduce fire. And again, a benefit from not only a conservation or an environment standpoint, but also a benefit from an urban wildland interface standpoint. So again, collateral benefits. And the last one I'll talk about is the $20,000 going towards the Ecological Goods and Services Project. And this is an agricultural producer group that has a pilot project in the Columbia Valley to look at modest forms of compensation to get landowners, primarily agricultural producers, to do best management practices on their property and to improve the property from a wildlife management standpoint. A simple explanation of that would be fencing a wetland in a riparian area, allowing cows to graze down to the water at one point, as opposed to impacting the entire wetland. And I do have one more, and this is quite recent and quite topical provincially, the northern leopard frog reintroduction into the Columbia marshes. We've supported that project now for 3 years at $45,000. The partner is the Columbia Wetland Stewardship Partner, and it's really helping the provincial government deal with species at risk by reintroducing these frogs into the Columbia marshes, and to support, I guess, primarily the research leading up to the action of actually dumping froglets and tadpoles into the Columbia marshes. Local Conservation Fund expansion. We are exploring opportunities to expand the fund in the regional district of East Kootenay. We're also exploring opportunities to create a new fund in the regional district of Central Kootenay, and we're helping other organizations in other areas as well, primarily in the last little bit, the South Okanagan's and Milkmene, in the Bow Valley in Alberta, and working with the federal government, ironically, in Manitoba, about using this mechanism, this conservation tool, in other areas. Again, we were the first one in Canada, and it's just starting to percolate out that this is something maybe other people should pay attention to. And what we believe at the end, and to wrap up the presentation, is working together we can maintain the rich biological, economic, and social heritage of the Kootenays. So I thank you for your time, and happy to answer any questions you might have.
Councilor Hall?
No.
Excellent presentation. That's my only comment. And Councilor Lang?
Yeah, I'm just very impressed. But you haven't mentioned much about the West Kootenai. I take it you're just now starting to make inroads and approaching the appropriate groups.
Right, and the one way that we've done that, following the model in the U.S., is to really base our initiatives on what we're hearing through our market research. So we did telephone polling and focus group research in 2006, leading up to the 2008 fund. We replicated all of that research again most recently this past year. And the greatest support for this type of effort and the least opposition really came from around the areas of Kootenai Lake. So what we're hoping to do is entertain a conversation with partners like yourself to look at creating something in the Kootenai Lake neighborhood. There is stronger opposition in some areas, and there's stronger support in some areas. And what we want to do is marry the strongest support and the least opposition to make the fund successful, even if it is on a smaller area and for a less amount of money than probably ideally we would want.
Councilor Whitfield? Councilor Hewitt?
Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
And I did bring some additional materials as well. This is a publication actually put out by the federal government in partnership with our organization that talks through kind of the nuts and bolts of how the fund is created in the legislative framework. And then I did bring along terms of reference from our Columbia Valley Local Conservation Fund. And what we found in our market research, and particularly in the focus groups, is that this document answered 95% of the burning questions that people had around administrative, cost effectiveness, how the fund's administered, so on and so forth. So I've got copies here for all of you, and I think for some folks in the back as well. Ready?
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate your
the opportunity.
commitment to biodiversity, and some interesting discussions will occur on this matter, I'm sure.
Sounds good. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. You have to stop, Jen?
Can we go to 4A, report from the administrator?
It's a fairly busy time of year for public works. They're supposed to be preparing the way for a number of projects. You may have noticed the electrician out today working on parts of Water Street in preparation for getting the street lights done later on. Glenn is fairly buried. Chemical heating and air circulation, this always comes up at the wrong time of year perceptually, but we've had Mr. Duncan Lake from White Goat Enterprises look at the building and review its heating and air circulation improvement. He's revealed quite a list of jobs that need done, and probably arguably should have been done before the geothermal units were put in some respects, but nevertheless it's provided us with a prioritised list of things that should be done. Of some surprise to me was the existence of a surplus geothermal unit that had not been required for City Hall. In the view of Duncan Lake, that unit, which is quite valuable, holds the key to improving air circulation both in the winter and the summer in parts of the Kentwell building, and he suggested an approach to install that. We can budget safely to do some of the initial works up at about $80,000. Public Works in the winter will follow up on one of his other recommendations in-house and properly insulate the furnace room in the basement. That's not been done, and it's losing a very large percentage of heat apparently. So we can, just with a bit of work in-house there in the winter and with these improvements, we should be able to see some upgrade to the work this coming winter.
The recommendation that White Goat Enterprises be awarded up to $8,000 to install forced air geothermal unit into the Campbell building and make heat circulation improvements to government and tenant office areas as required.
Second by Councilor Lang.
For discussion?
Discussion?
Yeah, I'm confused. How is the forced air system integrated into what we already have here?
It doesn't, is the answer, but it addresses some air circulation challenges in the summertime, and it apparently can be done relatively easily by going through the basement and up through certain parts of the middle of the building. It can provide additional heat to the main floor in the winter and boost that, but it can also act as a cooling system, similarly to what's serving the library right now with the exact same systems.
Yeah, my question, I guess where I'm not understanding is typically these units are used in conjunction with forced air heating systems or cooling systems, which means there's ductwork in the building and that
There will be some
ductwork.
I can pass this quote list on to you for interest if you like.
Okay, well, $8,000 doesn't seem like a lot of money to make this happen effectively, but has Glenn Walker had a chance to...
Yes, he's been working significantly.
Okay, well, I'll leave it at that.
Further discussion? Ready for the question? Call the question. All in favor? Motion passes.
A number of Campbell tenants have received property tax notices, which has not been particularly popular. Care Finance will likely have to discuss that, the deferred matter of permissive tax exemption from last year in the next month, and address what could be done for private sector entities renting space. The council so desires we can issue permissive tax exemptions for businesses. It's simply some of these organisations have been caught on unexpectedly. BCAA have been more diligent, and the tax bills are coming as a consequence. There are various options the council could consider, and it probably needs a bit more discussion in committee as a whole. Probably, given some of their reactions, there probably will be some letters coming in. They're not huge amounts, but important dates for council are as listed below. The public hearing for the zoning bylaw will be at 6:30 p.m. before the next council meeting. The next recycling collection is June 19th, and I'm happy to report that the volume collected last week was about twice the volume the week before, so hopefully if we keep going in that direction, it'll be successful with time. We are working against a very attractive alternative of a transfer station in the public works yard, but we had no assurances would be there a year ago. So it's proving interesting. And I have a late piece, just it's on your main agenda page. It should have been in my report if I made it. I've heard back from the GFOA. I have been approved to attend the Financial Officers Boot Camp in August. Council wants to send me, you can. I'm suggesting I not attend UBCM to try and keep costs down.
Only that the CAO be approved to attend the GFOA Financial Officers Boot Camp from August 17th to 21st in Victoria, travel pursuant to municipal policy.
Moved by Councilor Lee, second by Councilor Lang. Discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Motion passes. I'm sorry, gang. Something happened here.
Well, item 4B is a notice of motion that I sent to council that the motion that is following up on the presentation we heard tonight from the Community Conservation Program. And that's the Village of Kaslo considers the question of participating in a Kaslo Area D conservation service with the referendum question posed to residents in November as part of it via referendum on the general election ballot. And Area E, Area F, and Area A are also going to be doing the same referendum. So that would be the service area, would be A, E, F, and Kaslo.
And D.
And D, excuse me. Yes. And D.
I'll second.
This is a notice of motion. Oh, you said
Well,
the notice prior.
this was
Okay.
from last council meeting.
Okay.
Like every time I hit the little X, it throws me onto this screen instead of, if I got too many open on it, I was trying to get rid of them.
That's a question. So this is only on private land, right?
They can't do private land. That's
Can-
their focus.
So just give us, like,
It
because
keeps
like
throwing
in
me
our
back when I log
LCP,
in, and then I start
we,
getting the little X's.
protected all
When I
the
get to a certain
water
one, it puts me onto this screen.
and stuff, so what part of the village would we need to conserve? Like, I'm not disagreeing.
This is trying, there's a, I think one of the main, this is all up for discussion, but for me to understand and wrap my mind around a little bit, like what you're saying. There's the Cooney Lake Partnership and Friends of Cooney Lake.
Right.
Their activities would be one of the vehicles that could be funded by this fund. It's that kind of activities. So a lot of the actions and the things that you see going on possibly in Kaslo Bay, with private property that sits on the waterfront, there could be some support around building. Probably one I would suggest, and again, I'm speaking hypothetically, I'm not saying this, but the shoreline guidelines documents and developing shoreline guideline policies around waterfront would be a prime focus, and that's, I believe, generally speaking, in the meetings I've been to, and I've been to quite a few on this, I think that's kind of the way it's sliding, but that's not, that's, again, this is some, yeah. But that helped me understand what their work is
Right.
doing and how they're trying to access, and basically there's no funding out there. The province and the federal governments have pulled back massively on this, and it's a sort of a bit of downloading, but I mean, we can't moan and groan about that. We need to step up to the plate and do things to protect our environment. This is one way to do it. And I like the fact that it's focused on private property because there's a void there.
Okay, I'm praying here a little bit. So are we past the notice of motion by Holland? Okay, so now we're on,
It's been moved and seconded, we're discussing.
ready for the question? Call the question?
No, I have a question. So this, all this commits us to is to talk about it further, correct?
No, this commits us to having a referendum at the general election in November where we'll put it to the electorate. Now, what's going to come, there's discussions coming up at our service, North Cooney Lake service meeting that we're going to discuss the details of this. So something will probably come back to council around, I mean, whether it's $20 per parcel, $10 per parcel, $5 per parcel, that is still in negotiation with the other proposed participants in this service. That would be Area D, Area E, and F, and Kaslo would be negotiating our way through the details of it. What this is stating, this moves in the direction that we're committed to work with these other areas around generating a referendum.
Councillor Lang?
Well, I think the concept is good, but I can't support it without seeing something in writing. It's just too vague, too wide open for me to suggest that it appears a referendum ballot. For me to support it as a referendum question.
The meeting to start to deal with all of this is on the 16th of June, right? Here in this building.
That's the North Cooney Lake Services Committee. It was June 16th.
Yeah, and the Economic Development Commission will be discussed at that time?
Economic development, yes.
Okay, so there's a wide range of issues that are going to be put on the table here, right?
Yes.
About how that committee will make decisions, because those other commissions will disappear, right? Is that, am I understanding this right?
We're straying off topic, I think.
Oh, okay.
We're talking about the conservation project, what's going to be called the Kootenai Lake Conservation Project, which is a proposed service based on a parcel tax for funding between Area D, Area E, Area F, and Castle. And that there will be negotiations between those four participants around exactly what the language of the referendum will be. What we're doing at this point, by passing this resolution, and maybe this resolution should be worded a little different to address your concern, Rob. We're not, the exact question has not been determined. That's going to be negotiated, and that'll come back to council. Council will review that and give me direction on how to negotiate the others. There's going to be, you're going to see some hard numbers around what a parcel tax would be, and what should be perceived. And
For this conservation
this
issue.
conservation service, yes. So it's not sort of like in the can yet. It's what we're stating is that sort of like agreement in principle. Maybe you want to change it to agreement in principle with the referendum, if that makes you more comfortable. It's not really a completely jail thing. It's just it's giving me as your representative of the regional district to move forward in discussion with these other areas, and I'll be reporting back with everything that happens.
Councilor Eastman.
I mean, the way I read the motion, it says the village of Castle considers. So that doesn't necessarily mean that we are etched in stone. So
No.
we're considering the question,
Correct.
right? So this
I'm
is
fine with
actually-
that.
Yeah.
That's the way it is.
Mm-hmm. That's,
Yeah.
Further discussion? Ready for the question? Call the question. All in favor? Motion passes. And that's we're on to number 5. Correspondence, Castle Seniors Branch number 81, letter dated June 4th.
I believe this is an issue that's come up before my time here in recent years as well.
well, yes.
Councilor Hall?
There was a policy developed, I believe we stated that signs and chairs and everything had to be within 2 feet of the front of the structure of the building, correct?
Yeah.
So are they looking for something different than that?
No,
Well,
Councilor Hall, Hewitt.
there are a lot of them that are right up at the edge of the sidewalk versus next to the buildings. So there isn't really consistency.
mhm.
So you sort of have to, you do have to weave along them in some places. I could see, in cases that they're referring to with people on scooters that, it's a little more difficult for them to navigate in some places. So if you've got to build one storefront that has it right next to their building, and then the next one has it, out on the sidewalk, like right at the edge of the sidewalk, and also having it right at the edge of the sidewalk, if somebody's opened their car door, it could hit the side. So there is something in our signage bylaw, I'm sure, about having it right next to the building, so.
Councilor Hewitt.
Well, they're asking if you would want to speak to them at the meeting. And maybe-
Well, I am a senior citizen, actually. And I do go to their Saturday and their Friday afternoon because it's pretty good food.
I mean, maybe we could send a letter to businesses reminding them about our policy and then indicate to the seniors that that's what we've done.
If any of council are attending the open house, the other best advice would be if there are specific situations, particular businesses that are bothering them, they should put it into writing, so that we can tackle the individual businesses that are causing people difficulty. The generic letters, which are fine, limited, limited impact.
Okay, I'll look the bylaw up. But the other issue there is, I think, they talked about access And we did discuss that a little bit last year, and the issue, I'm wondering if we could think about doing something the same as what we did in the, for the Lang. If you remember, they had some problems getting in there, we just raised the sidewalk in a structure that allowed them to get into the Langham with mobility devices.
They eliminated the stairs, put in a ramp.
Right.
But yeah, I'll get the bylaw and I'll go for a Friday coffee and treat. Okay? So I will check that bylaw. Have you checked that bylaw? Is it easy to find?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Further discussion? So did you want to make a motion that the village read a letter explaining the bylaw and asking for letters where there's issues, or would that be the way to do it?
I've got a direction to staff here, just later to.
Okay, good. Okay.
But I'm just pointing, I encourage them to be specific. And give-
Yeah, no, that's fine. Okay, so that direction is staff. So now we're on to communications for information package. What did I see there? 122 pages. So any councilors have something they'd like to raise? I had a couple of just comments, but to this. I read the one on the municipal insurance authority, right? And it's our insurance company. So we had talked earlier about, or I'd like to bring that one forward for discussion. Any other ones you want to bring forward?
Can we bring it to the committee of whole?
Oh, that would be an option too, I guess.
I thought that's what it said at the bottom, if you pull any, you bring it to the committee.
Or you can put it tonight under new business.
Well, let's bring it to committee as a whole. And the other one I'd like to bring to committee as a whole. No, that's the only one that majorly affects. I think it's got some, we got to find a better way to get insurance coverage. Okay.
So I'll move to receive
Right.
all but, do you know what item number it is?
Oh,
Or all
boy.
but the correspondence from the Municipal Insurance
I
Association?
think it was on page 87, MIABC. Because you sit on that board, don't you?
Well,
On that
not
committee.
board, but I attended.
Yeah, because so maybe we need to get something ready for UBCM to, okay.
I'll second that motion.
Discussion, call the question, all in favor? Motion passes.
And I'll move to refer the item from MIABC regarding insurance to the next committee of the whole, or to committee of the whole, perhaps not next, depends on the chair, but refer it to committee of the whole.
Second by Councilor Lang. Discussion, ready for the question, call the question, all in favor? Motion passes. Okay, now I'm going to pray a lot here. So here's what happens, Susan. There's where I get to. Now, how do I get back to the agenda? Well, so which one did you press that little X there that's in the black?
No, X's, you just,
Oh, the actual thing
the
itself.
actual thing itself, yeah. See, this one, if you want to get rid of it, you close it, you just, yeah, there you go.
Okay, see, that's different than before, but anyway, okay, thank you so much. All right, where are we at here? We're at circulation packages, committee and staff reports. Any committee and staff reports? Councilor
Not for
Eastwood?
me.
Councilor Lang? Councilor Holland?
SEDS met yesterday, and we're still trying to move forward on a partnership with Project Comeback around doing a business retention and expansion study. Rural Development Institute is another meeting, I believe I've already reported to you guys on that, that we're slated, we're still on their list to go through that. So that's the primary activity that's coming out of SID right now. And we are doing generating a bit of a project to-do list, and currently we're just kind of analyzing that based on the report that CAO gave us in the previous meeting around what the capacity is that SIDs can do. So we're narrowing that down. Probably something coming to council at some point around that.
Councillor Hewitt. Okay, well, and I'm sorry, I can't remember about the Community Futures meeting. Both Councillor Allen and I were there. It was a day-and-a-half seminar with a focus on how broadband can help your community. I found it very interesting. They brought in a speaker from, I think, Tim, did you circulated some notes on that? I can't remember.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I sent a report to you guys.
There was a delegate from Stratford, Ontario, very interesting what they did. Similar problems to ourselves, but 30,000 people to work with, so it worked out. And then the other interesting person is Amber Hayes. She's going to be here for the Rural BC project. Oh, which reminds me, Stephanie scanned. She won't take paper from me anymore, so she scanned. Unfortunately, there's been some changes. So because of the strike at the school, possibly. So the registration may occur at the Lang.
It said that.
Yeah. Oh, did it say that?
Yeah, there was,
Randy sent another.
yeah.
Oh, Randy sent another one that she scanned and put in there. Is that right? Okay, whatever. I'm just saying so there's these concurrent workshops, so you get to pick one of 3. And so I've picked, and I haven't got the paper with me, but I think it's going to be a very interesting. There's 70 registrants and quite a few people that I think will register when they get here. What else did I have here? Mayor Dooley circulated a really interesting document, a primer on regional districts in British Columbia that was done in 2006. I wish I'd read this quite a while ago, because it spells out what the original intent was for regional districts and municipalities. So I don't know whether this is available on the internet. It should be. I can leave it with Neil. He's probably been through it a couple of times. It might have an interesting discussion with him. Really, what I took away from reading this was the fact that the regional districts were originally meant to be a federation of regional districts and municipalities, that the regional districts would provide direction to the municipalities. Well, you know, they're all over the map, and at the Mayor's Caucus, there's going to be a recommendation coming from UBC to revisit the role of the regional districts and that relationship between municipalities and the regional districts. So I can leave this with Neil, or he could find a link for this, I guess. I think it would really help people to understand, you know, what the options are with regional districts. Well, that's it. Okay. Bylaws. So bylaw 115.
First, we
Yeah.
just,
What's that?
Just the committee reports.
yeah, so
Was there any more?
okay, I'm sorry, I thought you were doing verbal reports going on the table. There's, just following up on the RDI, I mentioned the BRE, but the other thing that the RDI would like to receive a copy of our ICSP. I don't know if the draft is finalized or where we're at exactly with that, but they're interested in seeing that document.
Yeah, as Councillor may recall, you wanted it to go one more round, and we actually got significant feedback from one local stakeholder. It's taken a little bit of time to get that feedback back into the draft. So I'll probably have that for you at the next regular meeting of council.
Council can help.
Councillor Hewitt?
Well, this is off topic, but sort of, since we're talking about ICSP, so is that something that the committee needs to meet again about? Is it significant change or just missing information? Or?
It was some elaboration on the whole housing area by someone who probably knew the file a lot better than anyone else, and I think it's it's all welcome additions.
So,
Okay.
And then just, so I'm going back to my note, that on the, at the CD forum, there was an observation from Paul West, who spoke at the thing from Strap Down Jerry that Greg alluded to, and the big take home from that was a quote, "Pressure from local broadband initiatives will spur on telcos to upgrade services." And their viewpoint on that was that that should be encouraged to support long-term development. So I thought that was pretty interesting to come out of that thing. I just mentioned that.
Yeah, and it's happening. Anything else? Oh, I have a request though about a report concerning the fire hall. So maybe for the council meeting, like, are they on budget, off budget? How long before completion? I've been trying to get there and do a tour, but I haven't made it. I
I've seen reports there that they've done they're in the final subcontractors, sub-trades and they're doing their things, and I haven't heard anything other than last projections I heard would be on budget, on time.
Okay.
I guess the one last thing I'm sorry, when I looked at my notes, I thought I'd already presented my FCM report at the last council, but I guess that was,
Is it the RDI one you mean?
FCM.
Send it to us.
I sent it to you,
Just,
but I hadn't spoken.
yeah,
Okay, well, there's one very significant thing that happened at FCM around heritage buildings that I guess I'd like to say publicly. There's Heritage Canada National Trust is a foundation that supports significant projects and important projects across the country. And they're very interested in, they're looking for specific kind of projects that offers a bit of a profile of them. The guy that spoke to us was named Jim Mountain, and I tried to get at him, but he was so compelling about seeking out projects that I couldn't get at him after the meeting. I gave up. I got his business card. But absolutely, if we've got even a spare, or maybe we could mount some volunteer effort or whatever, if we can, or maybe we even have something on file that can be pared down to send him a little bit of a statement around the historical significance of the city hall. I'm absolutely convinced with the right kind of picture and right, they're looking for, they're actively doing something. So I'll pass that business card to you. And again, I can't, I'm not going to burn up a bunch of time here, but I can't overstress that this is a solid lead, something we really need to try to follow up on. There's a website, I believe it's on there.
Appreciate that.
And the other thing that he was very excited to announce, of course, like everything else, that gas tax money is turning into basically a general revenue fund at this point. But the gas tax has been open to be able to be used on heritage projects also. So, okay, that's it.
Okay, moving on to bylaws. Bylaw 1155. Mover? Moved by Councilor Leaflet, second by Councilor Hall. Discussion, all in favor? Motion passes. 3 readings, yeah.
I'll move that bylaw 1155 be read a second and third time by content.
Seconder?
First time by title and second and third time by content.
Second by Councilor Hall. Discussion, call the question, all in favor? Bylaw passes.
I'll move that bylaw 1156, Village of Castle Dog Control Amendment, be read first time by title.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Hall, second by Councilor Hewitt. Discussion, call the question, all in favor? Motion passes.
And I'll move that the bylaw 1156, Village of Castle Dog Control Amendment bylaw be read second and third time by content.
Moved by Councilor Hall, second by Councilor Hewitt. Discussion, call the question, all in favor? Motion passes.
And I'll move bylaw 1157, Village of Castle Land Use Amendment bylaw be read second and third time by content.
First
Okay, okay, just
first two readings only because it's a land use bylaw.
Oh, that's where we got the special meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought when it said 2 readings, and we'd already done one.
No.
Okay, so the first time by title.
Second.
Discussion, call the question, all in favor, motion passes.
Bylaw 1157, Village of Castle land use amendment bylaw be read a second time by content. Is that the way it goes?
Second by title.
Oh, second by title.
First by content, second.
Oh, I thought it was title first and
And then
content.
third by title as well.
This is totally
I'll,
different.
I'll write out the letter next time, sorry. Yeah.
This is different than we normally do it, right? We were doing it correctly, weren't we? Title and then content? Or were we doing the other ones wrong?
I wish I could play it back now. I thought you were doing it right. It was
Title
it's first by content, second and third by title, then fourth is adoption.
Oh, okay. So sorry we did that wrong.
It'll work.
It'll work.
That's why we have a CAO.
Call the question, all in favor, motion passes.
And sometimes we need a script.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't give you enough script.
That's okay. So you did miss.
I don't have anything under new business. Councilor Lang.
Did we move something voting?
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
And
Okay, I'll
With
write it.
animal
control.
It's actually,
And that is section 4. Section 9 is good for start, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'll read it now. Basically, Pam will be appointed animal control officer for the Washington traffic.
Moved by Councilor Lang,
Second.
second by Councilor Leithwood. Discussion, ready for the question, call the question, all in favor, motion passes. And accounts payable.
You go ahead.
Sorry, I just because this item, I think that we should take an opportunity in the public meeting to just elaborate slightly on the fact that the animal control bylaw officer that has just been engaged is not a resident of the community, but she's a professional animal control officer that works for the regional district of Central Kootenai, and she'll be working in our community, and that'll probably mean a change in the
Enforcement.
yeah, there's probably going to be a little shift in the enforcement. So people should be aware that in the community, and we'll probably do a little bit of an ad campaign to just get people up to speed that the may be a little stricter, which I'm sure much of the community will be quite pleased about. A few may not be so pleased about. But it's fair that we give warning now, give due warning that there'll probably be more stringent enforcement of the animal attractants bylaw.
Okay.
That was it.
Okay. So,
Now, move that accounts payable in the amount of $40,577.99 be approved.
second by Councilor Lang. Discussion, call the question, all in favor, motion passes. And the financial report.
I'll move that the 2013 annual report be received and posted for public information.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Lang, second by Councilor Hewitt. Discussion, ready for the question, call the question, all in favor, motion passes. Motion for adjournment. Moved by Councilor Hewitt, second by Councilor Lang. Discussion, call the question, all in favor. Thank you, council. So, do you think you can find this thing and get Stephanie? I mean, it's not a high priority. It's just- She can just, that would be for your information. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna try and see what happens. It worked. Jeez.
Public time before we.
Yeah, it's fun time. All right. Jan?
Well, first, just wondering about the property taxes in this building, that no nobody's ever gotten property taxes before? Is that the situation?
Some did last year.
Some did last year. So, you guys own the building, right? So, why do tenants have to pay property tax? Yeah, I thought owners paid property tax.
Lease situations can result in them having to pay property tax if they're leasing property. Just as is the case with the hangar owners on the airport property have leases that they pay property tax on. But sometimes there's a lag between the assessment authority picking up on that and it going on the roll. Sometimes it comes as a bit of a nasty surprise. If the lease agreement hasn't said that your taxes will be taken care of or anything like that, you can be on the hook for it. And also if you're a not-for-profit in this building, for example, and you're in that situation, if you've not been provided with a permissive tax exemption, you'll still have to pay the taxes. So that's something that the committee of the whole will have to discuss at a later date. And if you're a private business, we can't even do that under certain sections, although there are other sections like downtown revitalisation, permissive tax exemptions that could possibly be considered. But the council are going to have a bit more of a discussion about that.
Okay. And so are the assessment authority kind of caught on? So is it back taxes too that these people are, okay, they don't do that?
No, just I'm not an expert in that matter, but in that particular matter. But it seems to just be once it's on the roll, it moves forward. The same sort of thing happens with zoning. It moves. There's a bit of a lag, and and if a property's zoning arrangements change from bylaw to bylaw, sometimes there can be a knock-on effect on the assessed value.
Oh, right.
But it might not happen the first year.
That's all I have.
Any comments? We're
No comments,
okay.
I think.
Anyway, we need to then end the meeting, the formal meeting, and recess and go back in the camera.
Okay.
So, if we'll turn that camera off, and just a quick question for Jan. Did Randy Morse? Oh, sorry.
No, it's just, so now there's another meeting on the 24th, right?
That's right. You weren't going to be here for the public hearing. I think that's why you're here.
Yeah, well, yeah, we'll be able to come to the 24th one.
Okay.
Good idea, it was the